Hello, hello, Luminary. Welcome back to another episode of the Savvy Luminary. And today I'll be chatting with Whitney McNeill, Messenger of Spirit. I'm so excited to chat with her as she shares with us the 4 ways that you can connect with spirit. And we can all really harness spirit as a strategic tool in our business. I'm so excited. But before I bring Whitney on, I wanted to chat about Chiron, the wounded healer. In the conversation with Whitney, we talk about kind of a spiritual awakening and a timeline for that spiritual awakening. And did you know that in your own natal chart and the cycles that transiting planets like Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, and Chiron, as they transit through your chart, you have a midlife awakening at your disposal. So when Whitney and I were talking, we were talking that after our Uranus opposition, which normally happens anywhere between 38 and 42 on average, it's slightly different for everyone depending on what year you were born. But when you have that Uranus opposite Uranus, where the planet Uranus is opposite of where it was at the time of your birth, we have this Kundalini energy rising, and our spiritual energy comes up through our spine. It's really like this energetic awakening. And we can harness this awakening as a spiritual awakening where our greatest powers are at literally at the surface, so much easier to get to. I shared earlier that in my midlife awakening is when I founded the Astrobrad method, where I started combining astrology and leadership. And for all of us, it's going to be slightly different depending on how our planets are positioned in our houses. Anyway, I'm getting into all of the details, but what I really wanted to mention is that if you are interested in working intentionally and purposefully with your midlife, whether you're before midlife or you're right smack dab in your midlife or you're after midlife and wanting to really kind of clear the way in case there was any unfinished business that you had during midlife, Chiron and Midlife Awakening, a 4-week intensive workshop that I'm co-hosting with hypnotherapist Nadia Arens, is now open. And so if you head on over to thesavvyluminary.com/Chiron, you will find 2 intensive workshops that I have, that I've opened up in parallel. Chiron and Midlife Awakening is a little bit out of the ordinary for my type of workshops because it's really based on just spiritual awakening. There's no business involved, although we'll often see how businesses shift and evolve during your midlife awakening. And so midlife awakening normally happens somewhere between our late 30s, like around 38, all the way about to 52. So it's like about a 10 to 15 year period, slightly different for each one of us, depending on when we were born. But Chiron, the centaur, the wounded healer, is definitely involved in all of this midlife awakening so that you can heal your core wounds and turn them into the magical wisdom of your spiritual awakening. And then the sister workshop that I have is called Chiron, the Wounded Leader. And this is for us entrepreneurs who really want to work the things that we cannot heal in ourselves, as represented by Chiron, into our offerings and in our leadership in our entrepreneurial work. And so these 2 workshops, while they're separate, they are in parallel. They support each other. So Chiron and Midlife Awakening will be starting on October 17th for 4 weeks through November 7th, again, co-hosted with Nadia Arens. So it will be part teaching, part hypno healing. The doors are not open. And then Chiron, the Wounded Leader, the waitlist is still open, and that's from October 27th through November 17th. So ending right before American Thanksgiving. And again, this is a 4-week intensive for entrepreneurs who are looking to integrate their Chiron wounds into wisdom and leadership in their work and in their offers. So if you want more information on that, please join me. Head on over to thesavvyluminary.com /Chiron. And thank you for listening to that. Let's listen to Whitney McNeill in our conversation about her messenger of spirit and how you can work with your intuition in your work. All right. Talk to you soon. Hello, luminaries. It is Leslie Tagorda, your brand astrologer, back again for another episode. And this time I'm super excited to bring a certified medium, a mentor. I consider her a wonderful friend. Today we are talking with Whitney McNeill. Oh my goodness, she has so much to share. And she also is the host of another amazing podcast called Spiritual and Ambitious. Hello, Whitney. Welcome.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks for having me. I always love our conversations.
Oh, yes. I mean, we can just talk about spiritual strategies in our businesses for like until the cows come home, I guess you could say.
Oh, definitely. It's such a interesting topic. I mean, when you're combining business with spirituality and astrology, I mean, I'm just so loving all of that. Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. Me too. Like we are from the same fabric. So, we are recording this on the cusp of our Mercury retrograde that's going to start in a couple of days. I know this podcast will get released a little bit later, but just so everybody kind of understand where each of us individually are and what fun timing to play with. But there's been some great you had some really great Mercury retrograde stories for the shadow period. The shadow period always kind of hits you, right, Whitney?
It does. And what's interesting, the post shadow tends to really hit home. So my thought process around this retrograde is, wait a minute, since the pre-shadow has been so intense, maybe it's clearing my path for the rest of the cycle. And I'm sure Mercury is laughing in the background, but that's what I like to think.
Yeah.
But it's helpful. The pre-shadows really helped me tie up loose ends. We have an oracle card deck that's launching the day we're recording this, and there's been some loose ends that we needed to tie up. So it really brought to light some of the things that we needed to fix before we actually launched. So that was really helpful. And you and I just had that conversation of, I had been in Phoenix for a while. My husband had business there, and we came home on Sunday, and then his computer was completely broken and
Ah.
he had to take it back to the Apple store, which is in Phoenix. So what's really interesting, I had intended to take time off in Phoenix, but all these exciting projects and the details I needed to fix came up during that time. So in a way, it was almost as if I had this new opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to go back down and take a few days of vacation. It was almost like a revisiting of, hey, Whitney, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. So here's another opportunity. So this time I'm not taking my computer.
Yes. Oh, you get a redo. And it's so interesting to hear the themes like happening in real life, right? Like for even though you'll probably be listening to this way after or like sometime during the Mercury retrograde. If you think back to that kind of pre-shadow, right? Like we're recording this on September 7th. The themes that start to kind of break down in that pre-shadow is really what Mercury is asking you to rethink and reorganize. And I don't know if it's like, can we share about that contract that you need to redo? So we were
Yeah.
chatting a little bit before hitting record because Whitney had some amazing news to share with a new moon intention that she said. I'll let you take the mic.
Thank you. So we had the new moon in Leo, and I was there with you in a group and we were doing our intention setting. And Leo for me is a big deal in my chart. So I really felt like, perfect. I'm going to send out my book proposal on that new moon. And I set the intention to have the most aligned agents, which now I did get the most aligned agents. And this is so exciting. And we are just waiting to sign the contract. And so what I loved is, Leslie, you just told me, hey, it's okay. It's already started. Don't worry about signing it in the middle of Mercury retrograde because I
Yes.
started this before.
Take your time and go through all of those details. And, Whitney has, when she mentioned that Leo is really important in her chart as the messenger of spirit, one that communicates with spirit guides, like like with your Leo, you have Leo rising with both Mars and the North Node, like almost right on top of that ascendant sign. And so remember that when we're working with astrology in our businesses, our rising sign is like like the beginning process, like how we initiate and how we lead. And so with Whitney, I can just imagine not only that kind of process with finding the perfect agent, but also how you lead and connect with spirit. There's just like this rush of energy and passion that when you said the word alignment, that alignment is that heart centered passion, that rush of energy, and that go, go, go. And so, full circle, Mercury retrograde, reminding you to go, okay, we don't need to rush through anything. I know that that's the MO of your Leo, Mars, and North Node there, but this time we get to intentionally leave the computer behind, go take a nice hot, fiery vacation in Phoenix for this late
That's true.
summer.
So with that, if you try to get in the swimming pool in Phoenix, you must have your flip-flops right next to you when you get out because it is very hot and fiery on the journey back to your shoes. But you brought something up that I did want to share. I yesterday was channeling messages for my membership. And this amazing message came in from spirit that really speaks to what you said. No need to rush. The card was the card of patience. And the message was, even though you feel when you have patience, things are happening too slow, when you have patience, you actually are speeding up time because you're clearing a way for spirit to bring all these opportunities to you the way that they're meant to be. Versus if you try to speed up the process yourself, like emailing that person instead of waiting, or trying to do all these actions that aren't really in alignment, you're actually slowing the process down. So the ego, the body feels like we have to do things because we're helping, we're going to make it go faster. When in fact, patience is a blessing and it can speed up the time. It's the natural divine timing of it versus we kind of get in our way and can muck it up a little bit. So I thought that was really beautiful.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Spirit, for sharing that truth with us. Just thinking about the freedom of patience and how we inevitably are less effective when we're trying and pushing and just wasting energy instead of like waiting patiently. So, okay, so tell us, you mentioned a couple of things that the reason why we're chatting today is about channeling spirits and your spirit oracle deck, messenger of spirit oracle deck. So, what do you want to talk about first? Because I want to talk about all of it.
I'm so excited about the Oracle card deck, but working with spirit, that's a huge passion of mine. I was always interested in it when I was younger. And I was frustrated because I did not see any kind of education or knowledge that would help me understand it more in a grounded step-by-step way. So I really sought that out. I wanted to learn more. It felt very expansive to talk to spirit. It felt very exciting, but it also felt very scary because I didn't exactly know how to work with the somewhat invisible world if you're not really leaning into your intuitive languages. So, my passion is to really help other people and teach in a step by step way because everybody has the ability to communicate with spirit. You just have to use your intuitive language. And I used to do readings in my business, and I would just learn so much from spirit that no one else can really teach. It was just really amazing. And so I did work with spirit to say, hey, how can we share this knowledge with others in a way that is more understandable? And at the end of the readings, when I used to do them, I no longer do because I really want other people to do readings for themselves.
Yeah.
I would utilize card decks at the very end just to give last messages because it's great to be able to see your intuitive messages in a tangible way sometimes. I always tell my students not to use the oracle card decks as your sole way to communicate, but it can enhance your intuition. And I knew I wanted a deck years ago, and I knew what did I want. What did I can't talk, Leslie. What I
Mercury
wanted
hits again.
on the deck. Right, exactly. And there's so much symbols that spirit will send us. In those symbols, there's so much information that comes through when you're talking with spirit, when you're channeling with spirit. And I wanted to provide and create an oracle card deck where there was a lot of symbolic language on the cards, but also short and sweet understanding of what the message is, combined with numerology, because there's meaning in numerology too. So that's how it all came together over the course of several years. But I'm very excited to offer this.
Oh my goodness. So I want to dig in and just say how much I mean, of course, we like when we started working together, it was just like this fast and furious, like just all these things that we loved together because you work with entrepreneurs and business makers and change makers just like me. Um, but harnessing spirit as a strategic tool, right? Like we're not just using spirit in the background, in the closet and like talking about like how can we find our next romantic partner. We're really relying on spirit, like kind of on our board of directors saying like, hey, what is that next step that we need to take, that and like how do we do this that we can accomplish like these really big goals without worrying about the hows, because we know that spirit is going to show us the way.
Yes. And the more that you trust and lean into those messages, the more you see the results. And it's so interesting to talk to people who don't understand that you can utilize spirit in that way. And I love when those light bulbs come on and I see them go, oh my gosh, I can do that. And one of the things that I always talk to my students about is to talk to your spirit guides every day and have a meeting just like you would with your team in your business. We are saying, how's this department going over here? I would like some help with this. And it's really interesting that your spirit guides will have specialties. They will help you with marketing. They'll help you with publicity. They'll help you with speaking engagements, depending on what it is that you really need in your business. And really, we just need to communicate. We need to do our part to understand how it comes in for our energy. And even if you haven't gotten that part down yet, just talk to your guide. Sometimes we just think, oh, it'll happen when it happens. Nope, they're ethical. They're not going to read our minds. We actually need to be really clear with our goals. We need to be really clear with talking to them just as we would any other relationship. And,
Mm.
people will go to counseling with their partners or family, and the counselor will often just say, hey, I think that here are some tools to help you communicate. We need to make sure you're communicating in any relationship. That's important. And it also still is with our guides.
Ooh, I love that so much because thinking about like I have some spirit guides that I work with. I don't consider myself a medium or even psychic. I feel that I'm very intuitive and I'm learning how to channel. Now, it's hard for me to receive message from spirit. Like if I ask them a question, I don't always get the answer. But what I do know is that when I ask the question, the right question, spirit's like, "Oh, Leslie's ready." She's ready for that next best step, and then they lay out the things that I ask for. So even before here, like before our time together, every work day I set up intentions and I have a conversation with my spirit guides even though if I can't hear them. So my question for you is, does everyone have the ability to connect with spirit guides?
Yes, everyone definitely does. It just comes differently. And a lot of times from watching movies or things, sometimes people feel like they have to see or hear, but our spirit guides communicate in four main intuitive languages. And so seeing spirit definitely is a language where when you're meditating or talking to your guides and you're receiving the messages, you may see a symbol. It could be a purple balloon, and you're sitting there going, what does this purple balloon mean? And if you just keep your mind clear and ask your guides, what does this mean? You'll get the meaning. This just came up for me yesterday when I was channeling messages. It was a purple balloon, and the message was to raise your vibration higher and allow yourself to overcome. It was more of, we are moving to a new level. You know how balloons float. It was more in that place. There's some interesting symbols I've seen throughout my years, but sometimes it's very abstract. What does this mean? And I do want to share another one just for those listening right now who might just think they're making it up in their mind. Sometimes the most out there kind of thing that pops up after you ask a question is indeed a symbol. It's like almost like the more wild it is to you, the more that is a symbol. I had a symbol at one point, and I was teaching mediumship, and the students saw a purple dinosaur. And it was a dinosaur with a party hat. The purple actually didn't mean anything. It was more the dinosaur with the party hat. And she was giving a message to another student, and she said, I see Charlie Brown. And the woman said, yes, I work with somebody that really likes Charlie Brown. And she said, I see a dinosaur with a party hat. And she looked at me like, I'm making this up. And I said, no, you're not. The message was that this woman who liked Charlie Brown had been working at the school for years and years, and everyone was wondering when she was going to retire. And the party hat was, she's going to retire this year. So it's so interesting because she'd been there for ages, which represents the dinosaur, and the party hat. So that's one intuitive language. Another one is hearing. And when you do hear, I call this the owl intuitive language. It can sound like your own inner reading voice. And a lot of times people will think that they're just making it up because it sounds like their self. But if it comes in so super fast that you can't even make up the question, you get the answer so fast, that's coming in from spirit. But the other two are not languages that we normally associate with spirit. One is very familiar, which is the empath. However, sometimes we're not thinking that's from spirit. So when we're asking the questions to spirit, oftentimes you will get the sensation or allowing yourself to get it into your feeling center. So a lot of times people will have a yes, this is great, or a no, this is not. Or you might get hot and you might feel flushed, or you might feel tingles, or you might feel cool, like a wave of coolness. You can feel a tapping on your left shoulder or your right shoulder. And it just looks different for each person, but that is you receiving messages from your guides. And then the channeler is the one that I love talking about because a lot of people don't necessarily recognize it. The channeler receives messages from their guides through knowings and response in the body. So, for an example, I use this because it is one of the most powerful aha moments that I had. I am in my second marriage and it's lovely, but before my second marriage, I was married before. And my husband at the time was at work. I was the only person at home and I had my animals there, my pets. And I just got really mad because he lost his wedding ring. I just knew it. And I started reacting to it. And then about 5 minutes later, I thought, why am I reacting to something that nobody told me happened? So then he came home that night, nothing. Then he took me out to lunch the next day and said, I'm really sorry. I lost my wedding ring yesterday. And I just laughed and said, I'm so excited that you lost your wedding ring because I had this knowing and a reaction. So if you feel like you're not getting your messages through sight, through sound, through feeling, take a piece of paper and start writing when you're talking to your guides. And oftentimes the first thing that just pop into your mind as a knowing, that's a message, or
Mm.
see how your body is. And you can ask questions such as, would this be the right next step for XYZ goal that I have? And if your body gets really inspired and starts kind of moving around, then the answer is, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. If your body is, oh, I'm just sleepy right now, I gotta take a nap or I need to take a break, the answer is no. So it's more so understanding how your body reacts and allowing yourself to move energy through your body,
Mm.
which will help get that knowing sender there. So try pen and paper and just see what comes up for you. And so many times we just need to scribble. We just need to sit there and scribble because the energy is built up in our body and we need it to release in order to receive.
Ooh, I love that so much. I think just hearing you, I have like some questions, well, and realizations. The first is like, you definitely am a channeler. Like that is super clear. And I notice my intuitive powers are so much more useful and alive when I'm interacting with other people, especially with my
Mhm.
clients. Like there's just like these knowings. I do invite spirit to speak through me, and so it does come through, especially in readings. But so what do you say, like, if you see like these like abstract things, like these things that like don't belong, right? Like the purple dinosaur with a party hat, right? How do you start to connect the dots between the message and the symbol?
Yeah, definitely. So clearing your mind is the most important thing. So if your mind is clear, nothing else can pop in. Your mind is literally a channel for spirit to come through. And that purple dinosaur, you can look at this whole process as literally learning a new language. So if you're learning Spanish or French or any other language, you're learning what each word means. So with spirit, they're giving you the next word, the next part of the sentence. And so many times we want to just know the answer, like,
Mhm.
just give me the whole thing right now. So it's piecing it together at first. So if you're just clearing your mind, they're going to give you that dinosaur with the party at, and you just keep it clear. This is what happens when we get something we don't understand. Usually our mind kind of takes over and wants to analyze it.
Mm.
Well, this could mean this, it could mean that. So I would invite anyone listening to just stay clear and ask spirit, what does this mean? And then the meaning comes. So it just kind of inspiration, like it'll just come to you when you see it. I was talking to my guide several years ago and I saw those little contraptions, those toys you see at fairs where you put a quarter in and you try to grab a stuffed animal and then it
Mm.
drops
Mhm.
back down. And I saw upside down ice cream cones and it would just kind of drop each one. And I thought, what is this? My mind was clear and I just received drop the dairy. I thought, oh, well, that was really easy. That's what I need. That's what I needed. But I do want to share another symbol just because this next one is a little bit more abstract than drop the dairy. So I was doing a reading years ago and I was talking to this woman and I saw 2 + 2 = 4. So my logical mind, if it snapped back in, could have thought, well, this person's in accounting or teaches math or something like that. But instead of kind of squinching up like our body wants to investigate and move forward, one of the tips I would give anyone is to lean back in your chair and just remember spirit's going to give you the message. You don't have to go out and find it.
Mm.
When I did that, I just relaxed more, and out of my mouth came, there's 4 of you in a house, and there's 2 couples that live together. So one couple, another couple equal 4 people in the house. And the woman looked at me and said, yes. Like, what? So you really need to rely on spirit. Spirit knows the message, and it's just letting the next meaning come. So it's not about the analyzing. It's not about the trying to figure it out symbolically. It's let spirit give you the next word of the sentence. And it's a trust process too,
Mm.
but remember you're learning your language.
Oh, I love that so much. I wrote down the word receive. That's the word, right? Even like thinking about like moving your body back, like opening it up,
Mhm.
you're preparing it to receive the patience and that trust that you pulled in, I mentioned earlier, that patience for letting spirit just like don't rush spirit, like it's coming, right?
It is. Yeah. And when we try to make up the meaning of the symbol, that's when we mess the message up because we're trying to make sense of it. And I really do see whenever I teach this, a lot of times we just move our body in and try to figure it out because we are taught that it's all on us. We have to do this versus lean back and receive support and spirits doing the talking and just do the listening, if you will.
I love how your astrology chart is so related to just the way that you connect with spirit. Like your spiritual connection is very embodied with Mars on your rising sign of the body and your sun in your Aries sun of like the head in the eighth house. It feels so perfect to have that kind of reception in the Taurus at the midheaven. I'm always looking at like the midheaven I see for like people's kind of like spidey senses and then what else they have in the eighth and the 12th house and the fourth house, and yours are all packed.
I
um,
mean, it started when I was little. I just really love this topic.
oh, of course. I love this topic too. I noticed that, like, one of the things, right, we're thinking about like the symbols and a lot of my astrology, and I think sometimes it frustrates people because it's not super like predictive, like do this, don't do that. I'm always telling people, notice. They're like, Leslie, stop telling me to notice. But yes, noticing is such a huge part of learning this intuitive language because you start to recognize your signs, your symbols, the things that have meaning to you. Like, I know for me, one of the things that's really important to me is the sound of birds. Not only the sound of birds, but also like ravens or like black crows or black birds. They're
Mhm.
always following me. Not in a
Oh,
malicious way,
right.
but if I'm talking to like, say, like I'm talking to her over Zoom right now, and then I always hear birds in my clients' windows.
Oh,
And
that's so beautiful.
I'm like, did you hear that? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, you didn't hear that. Spirit says that that's right. It's affirming.
I love that. That's a wonderful calling card from spirit. Like pay attention, Leslie. This is for you.
Yes. And so, if I had just been like mindlessly going through life and just like dismissing those observations, then I'd be missing out on this whole nother layer of symbolism that's like right there for me.
Yes.
So how did you decide to create this business, Messenger of Spirit, and starting to harness spirituality and connection in your business?
I feel like it mainly I sought it out and I wanted to understand it. And there was just a lack of education out there when I was looking for what to do. So I did seek out a mentor and I learned mediumship. And that was a huge validation of, oh my gosh, so all these random, I'm doing air quotes right now if you can't see, all these random symbols I'm seeing are in fact messages. And when I give these messages to someone else, they're nodding and they totally understand it. So it's really helpful to have that validation. But I myself went through that process of wanting to learn more. And I also went through a major healing process. And I feel like I needed those things in my life to really show me this is real, Whitney. And you need to step up and step into your light. I was at this place where I didn't love my life. I was working like 12 hours a day at this place I didn't love, and I wasn't happy in my world. So I, my body being, I'm primarily a seer with a real strong, heavy channeler.
Mhm.
So my body is very important. It started to get tired. I didn't feel well. None of the doctors could figure out what was wrong with me. And I was getting ready to apply for disability. And I was on the wait list for Duke to see a specialist. So my aunt said, we're going to take you to this alternative healing place. So I said, whatever. We went there, and after 4 days of energy work and opening my energy up, I was able to go on a hike in the desert where I wasn't able to even go from my bedroom to my bathroom without resting before. So this is a huge change. So much so that when I came back to the airport, my dad was there to pick me up, and he just stared at me and just kept driving. And I thought, okay. Then he did it a second time. So I called him and I said, I keep trying to come to the car and you just keep driving. What's going on? And he said, are you the woman in the red hat? And I said, yes. And he said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. I thought it looked like you, but that person had too much energy to be you. Oh my goodness. So it was a huge transformation. And I really started to say, Whitney, don't waste this life. Get back into your abilities.
Mhm.
Because really, I had run away from spirit prior to that. I was scared. I remember seeing a spirit on the edge of my bed, and I screamed and said, go to the light, you're dead. I didn't know what to do.
So many
So it
movies.
was it was so many movies. So really, I'd shut my energy down. And when I went to this healing place, they opened my energy back up. I had basically shut off my spirit guides, any kind of guidance intuitively. So I was making choices and living somebody else's life, it felt like. So when I
Yeah.
came back, I thought, I got to change my life. And I want to dive more into the spiritual aspect. So with that, I started to learn Reiki, and I started to understand more from spirit and to step into my calling, and my business just grew based on that and followed my passion. And my passion is teaching.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. So, may I ask, was this sometime around like late 2012, early 2013?
I actually started my business in 2010,
Okay,
but officially got my LLC in 2012. So that's
2012.
when I started the business officially. The health issues, that was around 2007 and 2008 time period.
Ah, what was the thing that the experience that you were explaining sounded like a spiritual awakening,
Mhm.
right? And there are definitely times in our lives where we have more access to that spiritual awakening from this astrology perspective. So, of course, I'm looking at your chart and I'm like, Uranus, the planet of change and awakening, was sitting right on top of your natal sun and, already an orb from that 2010. Sometimes that spiritual awakening, right? It's like, it feels like this like electrical pulse that if your body isn't open to that huge kind of like electrical surge, it can shut down,
Mm,
right? And then
that's
you
so
went to the
interesting.
desert to open up those channels. And then all of a sudden, your electrical circuits could now handle this surge of energy with Uranus sitting on top of your natal sun. And not all of us are going to ever have like a Uranus sun kind of conjunction because Uranus moves really slowly. But almost all of us will have a Uranus opposite Uranus, which is like the peak midlife awakening, also known as crises. But since you've gone through this awakening, you're approaching your upcoming Uranus opposite Uranus, and it's your powers are going to expand even more, Whitney. I think you can
Oh,
already feel that with
oh,
that purple
good.
balloon.
Yeah, with the purple balloon. I feel this awakening inside, so it's really interesting to hear that. And I knew about the opposition, so I'm glad you brought it up because sometimes I'm like, this could be really great, or maybe I should be a little worried about that. But I do
No.
feel an expansion, and it's so interesting. And in 2012, I just felt like everything kind of clicked in together and really up leveled my business. I kind of had started it in 2010. I was working out of someone else's office. 2012 was, I am getting my own office and I'm really expanding. And I did.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before I want you to tell us more about your cards, but is there anything else that you want to share with us about working with spirit guides before we talk about your oracle cards?
Yeah, I would say really make a priority, please. That's what Spirit is wanting to share, to talk with your guides
Mm.
because they're there and they're here to help you. So all you really need to start doing is 5 to 15 minutes a day to start talking to your guides, communicate with them, and you can talk to them out loud like you're hearing me right now, or you can do it in your mind with the intention that they pick up the thoughts, because they're not going to just come and read your mind, because that's not necessarily ethical. You need to actually communicate with them so that you're on the same page. And I say sometimes, if you had an assistant that was there to help you in your business and you never ask the assistant for anything, your assistant's going to try to help you, but may not do the things that you think are helpful. So just having that same page connection can be really, really nice. And also, Leslie, I wanted to say thank you too for all your insight in astrology. That's really helped in my business too, by the way. So really kind of giving me permission to step more fully into the Leo aspect of my chart. I'm wearing yellow just for that today.
It's beautiful. I was noticing the Leo colors.
I did. I thought today this has to happen.
Oh my goodness. So, everybody, I want you to find Whitney McNeill online. She is at messengerofspirit.com. She has her new Messenger of Spirit Oracle deck, brand new and available, launched today as we are recording. And of course, she has her wildly popular program for intuitive languages, which she's shared kind of those languages that our intuition is constantly trying to connect with us. So, oh my goodness, thank you so much, Whitney. Oh, and your Instagram is at Messenger of Spirit at Messenger of
Mhm.
Spirit. Beautiful.
Yeah.
How else can we work with you and find you?
Yeah, I think you've listed it all. I'd love for you, if you're listening to this episode, to DM me over on Instagram at Messenger of Spirit and let me know any ahas that have come up for you. You can find my cards at messengerspirit.com/order. And you can also find me on my website.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Whitney, and your spirit guides, and my spirit guides, and all of our spirit guides who have coalesced today to bring this episode through. It's so powerful. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
If you love this podcast, please consider doing me a favor and heading over to Apple iTunes and leaving me a rating and review. Your rating and review helps this humble podcast get seen and found by more listeners like you. Please share the love.